distinguished leaders against sex trafficking and sexual violence, ladies and gentlemen, friends, sisters and brothers, it is a great honor to join you on Indigenous Peoples Day in honor of America's first inhabitants and the tribal nations that continue to thrive today. We celebrate and recognize the many indigenous communities and cultures that make up this great country. As we commemorate this important day, I wish to pay my respects to the indigenous peoples around the world and to the traditional owners of the land that we are on today. Today, over 370 million indigenous peoples live in more than 90 countries around the world. They form about 5,000 distinct indigenous groups and speak over 4,000 languages. They have a strong relationship with their lands, territories, and resources. However, indigenous people are increasingly losing their ancestral lands as a result of development projects, settlement programs, conflict and violence, and climate change. In my country of birth, India, our indigenous people's lands and livelihoods were destroyed by years of colonialism. Christopher Columbus did not land on our shores, but a British man called Job Charnock did. That encounter morphed into a full-fledged East India Company and then the British Raj. The British banned the manufacture and sale of indigenous products to sell made-in-England goods. They evicted indigenous groups from forests to loot the timber and forest products so that they could sell their own products. They outlawed nomadic groups from traveling so that they could not trade in their products from one place to another. Those who resisted were labeled as criminal tribes and arrested for making or trading in anything. Forced from land and livelihood, they were, quote unquote, allowed to squat on lands of zamindars and affiliates of the British Raj in return for doing menial chores and making their women sexually available. Many of the communities ended up trapped in intergenerational prostitution. Change began when Gandhi led India's freedom struggle, combining the methods of civil disobedience with community service that he called constructive action. He built a large movement uniting people across class, caste, religion, and gender as he lived with them and listened to them. He began to wear homespun cloth as a rejection of the Manchester mill-made cloth. At the same time, he began to spin his own. His most well-known act of defiance was the Salt March, when he walked with his followers to the sea and picked up a fistful of salt. This was to say no to a salt tax imposed on Indians by the British. The Salt March was only one of the many strategies Gandhi adopted over a period of 30 years. Embracing prison sentences was another one, and the third one was the establishment of multitude ashrams. The ashrams became a place for those in the freedom struggle to do community service, discard hierarchies and taboos, and build everlasting bonds. Finally, India became independent 75 years ago. The label criminal was removed from nomadic and indigenous tribes. Government entitlements like access to low-cost food, housing, and education were set up to correct historic wrongs. Yet the stigma and marginalization remain. My NGO, Apne Aap, works among such communities in Delhi, Kolkata, and Bihar. We want to realize the dream of that fistful of salt that Gandhiji picked up. Our work focuses on running community classrooms and then sponsoring children in mainstream schools and colleges. So far, we have educated more than 2,000 children, breaking the cycle of intergenerational prostitution in those families. At the same time, we have created exit pathways for thousands of women by putting the traffickers in jail and connecting the women to the government entitlements like bank loans and livelihood skills, which they didn't even know about. Change is happening. It is slow but sure. I'm very thankful to my friends in Asia Society, especially Rachel Cooper, for giving us an opportunity to honor those who, like Gandhi, are engaged in constructive action at the grassroots. Ruby Sales, Chloe Flower, Tatiana Kotlyarenko, and Kendall Alaimo, who stand for the bodily integrity of women. I'm also thrilled to see the sisterhood of all the feminist leaders, writers, NGOs, members, and survivor leaders in the room. Some of them are past honorees, and others are future honorees. A special shout out to friend and mentor Gloria Steinem, Senator Liz Kruger, Apne Aap board members Dorchen Leidholt, Mona Sinha, and to Lucy Rice, who was one of my first awardees for the Last Girl Award. She was a schoolgirl at that time, and she had started a club in a school called Girls for the Last Girl. Today, she's a college graduate and carving out a path in women's feminism. As we mark 75 years of India's independence in partnership with Asia Society, I want to recall Gandhi's words: change begins at the bottom and transforms the top. Thank you.